They're small, silver, and often overlooked. But hidden in drawers, coin jars, and everyday change are Jefferson nickels worth thousands of dollars. These are the ones you don't want to miss, because one rare find could turn your spare change into serious cash. So stick around, because what looks ordinary might just be worth a fortune. Not every treasure glitters. Sometimes, it clinks softly in your pocket, quietly passed from hand to hand, hiding in plain sight. And sometimes, that treasure is just 5 cents. But today, we're kicking off with a coin that defied all expectations. A modern nickel, struck in massive numbers, overlooked for years, until one specimen changed everything. This is the story of the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how this tiny coin, once worth no more than lunchroom change, reached a jaw-dropping value most collectors never dreamed possible. Let's set the scene. It's 1983. A time of cassette tapes, payphones, and arcade machines. The U.S. Mint is producing coins by the millions, business as usual. The Jefferson nickel, already a familiar face since 1938, continues its run. Thomas Jefferson on the front. Monticello on the back. Copper and nickel blended into that standard 5-cent piece we all know. Most of these nickels lived ordinary lives. They got pocketed, spent, scraped across counters, jammed in vending machines, and rolled into wrappers. But one coin, one single 1983 P, didn't follow that path. It was different from the very beginning. This coin emerged from the Philadelphia Mint with a rare and powerful visual flaw. On the obverse, the side with Jefferson's profile, there was unmistakable doubling. Not light, not faint. Strong, well-defined doubling. You could see it with the naked eye. Letters like, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty" appeared to echo. The numbers and the date had shadows. It was a textbook example of a doubled die, a striking mistake that collectors dream of finding. But that wasn't the only surprise. This nickel had an unusual finish. Collectors described it as a double satin look. Under light, it didn't shine like a mirror, nor did it appear flat or dull. Instead, it shimmered with a soft texture, almost layered. That luster, rare for a coin struck for circulation, gave it visual depth and character. It wasn't the kind of surface you'd expect from a coin intended for everyday use. And then came the biggest shock of all, its condition. While most nickels from this era show immediate signs of wear, this coin somehow survived untouched. No scratches. No wear on Jefferson's cheek or hair. No nicks or dings from coin bags or cash drawers. It was flawless, frozen in time. It looked like it had been struck yesterday. When the coin was submitted to a professional grading service, experts were stunned. The die doubling was confirmed. The surfaces were immaculate. And the grade assigned? Mint State 68. That's not just rare, that's nearly unheard of for a coin like this. To understand the gravity of that, imagine this: millions of nickels were minted in 1983. But out of all of them, this may be the only one to show this exact combination: major doubling, unusual finish, and pristine condition at MS 68. That's not just rare. That's possibly unique. Collectors know that when rarity and condition collide, magic happens. And that magic led this nickel to the auction block. The buzz around it was instant. Collectors who'd spent years studying Jefferson nickels had never seen one like it. Error specialists examined the doubling. Auction houses promoted it as a standout modern error. The anticipation grew. When the auction finally opened, the numbers started climbing. This wasn't just casual interest, this was serious collector heat. The bids kept rising. It broke into 5 figures quickly. Then higher. One collector placed a confident bid. Another answered. A bidding war erupted. Nobody wanted to back down. And then it happened. The gavel hit. The final price? $73,000. That's right. A 5-cent coin, minted in 1983, sold for $73,000. What makes it worth that much isn't just the doubling. It isn't just the satin luster or the grade. It's the fact that all of those features exist together on one coin, and possibly nowhere else. In the world of collecting, that's everything. When something becomes a one-of-one, a true outlier, it becomes more than a coin. It becomes a trophy. A benchmark. A legend. Today, that 1983 P. Jefferson nickel sits safely in a collector's vault or display, sealed in a certified holder, protected from time. It's more than metal. It's history. A reminder that sometimes, something extraordinary is hiding in the most ordinary place. So next time you look at your change, take a closer look. Because treasure doesn't always shine. Sometimes, it jingles. And this was just the beginning. We've got more coins coming up in today's video, each with its own story, its own surprise, and maybe even its own small fortune. Up next is a coin that almost no one noticed. It's quiet, it's common, and yet, beneath its plain surface hides one of the most intriguing secrets in modern coin collecting. This is the 1988 P 5-cent coin, a Jefferson nickel that, for the longest time, blended into the background of everyday life. Passed from hand to hand, dropped in drive-through trays, tossed into tip jars, lost between couch cushions. Millions of them were minted. Most people never gave it a second glance. But a handful of collectors did. And what they discovered changed everything. At a glance, the coin doesn't scream for attention. It looks like every other nickel you've ever seen. Jefferson's familiar profile on the front, Monticello on the back. The letter P just to the right of Jefferson's ponytail, quietly letting us know it came from the Philadelphia Mint. But this coin's secret wasn't printed boldly across its face. It was hidden in the details, buried in the design, only visible to those who knew exactly what to look for. Something was off. The spacing. The relief. The finish on certain features. Under magnification, sharp-eyed collectors noticed differences in the reverse design, details that didn't line up with the standard dies used for circulation nickels in 1988. Monticello's steps weren't quite the same. The pillars looked slightly misaligned. The spacing between letters had a subtle inconsistency. Most would call it nothing. But for experienced numismatists, it was a signal. One small error in a die can ripple into something extraordinary. That's exactly what happened here. What started as a technical oversight became a blueprint for one of the most valuable modern nickels ever discovered. This wasn't a damaged coin. It wasn't worn or warped. It was struck using a different die, one that wasn't meant for the coin it ended up on. Some believe it was a leftover from a proof die, or a transitional design element that accidentally made it onto regular circulation dies. Either way, it resulted in a die variety so rare, it's believed only a handful were ever created, and even fewer were ever discovered. Even now, many collectors have never seen one in person. It exists more as a story, a whispered legend among those who study the smallest mistakes with the biggest payoffs. And that only adds to its mystique. Now, discovering a coin like that is rare enough. But the real kicker? One example was found in nearly flawless condition. No wear. No post-mint scratches. No dents, no discoloration, no signs of mishandling. It retained its sharp strike and original luster, with details so clean and preserved that even the finest lines on Jefferson's coat and Monticello's roof were clearly visible. The coin almost looked frozen in time, like it had skipped circulation entirely and waited silently for decades to be recognized. Its surfaces were bright, untouched, glowing with the kind of mint brilliance that only a tiny percentage of coins ever retain. It wasn't just rare, it was beautiful. Coins like this don't survive easily. They get lost in circulation, destroyed, or simply never noticed in time. But this one had somehow been protected, tucked away, untouched, as if it had waited patiently for someone to finally recognize what it was. When its condition was evaluated, it was given a top-tier mint state grade, placing it among the very best-known examples of this variety. Not just rare, but exceptionally preserved. Collectors of Jefferson nickels took notice. But so did those who specialize in die varieties, transitional errors, and modern rarities. The word spread, quietly at first, then more quickly, that this 1988 P nickel wasn't just a fluke. It was a sleeper hit, a hidden treasure, the kind of coin that only surfaces once in a generation. Even for experienced collectors, this was a reminder that modern coins still hold secrets. Not every valuable piece is ancient. Some are right under our noses, blending in with the ordinary. There's something magnetic about finding the extraordinary inside the ordinary. That's what pulls collectors in, the thrill of discovering a piece of history no one else noticed. This coin became a symbol of that thrill. The kind of coin you dream of finding in a pocket full of change. The kind of coin that reminds collectors why they search every roll, examine every detail, and keep looking, even when everyone else stops paying attention. And when the time came to assign a value to this nickel, this modest 5-cent piece that once sat unnoticed in a drawer, the result stunned even seasoned collectors. Because this 1988 P. Jefferson nickel, quietly struck in Philadelphia, hiding its flaw in plain sight, preserved in extraordinary condition for over 3 decades, was valued at $66,000. And it's out there, or at least, one like it might be. Still hiding, still waiting to be discovered. Which is why the next time you hear that familiar clink of coins in your pocket, take a closer look. Because the most valuable things don't always look valuable. Next, we move into the early 2000s. A time when coin collecting seemed quieter, less dramatic. Most people were more focused on technology than change in their pockets. But among the ordinary coins minted in 2003, something strange happened, something the U.S. Mint never intended. At first glance, the 2003 P nickel doesn't look like much. It's another Jefferson 5-cent piece, struck in Philadelphia, part of the standard circulation run. Tens of millions were made. It was meant to be spent, forgotten, replaced. But one coin from that massive batch didn't follow the rules. It slipped through with a mistake, and that mistake made it one of the most sought-after nickels of the modern era. This wasn't the kind of error you'd notice in passing. In fact, most people who held it wouldn't see anything unusual. No dramatic doubling. No missing design. No strange shape. But under the surface, this coin held a flaw so rare, so specific, it sent a ripple through the collector world. Somewhere in the minting process, something went wrong, quietly, mechanically, without fanfare. A planchet, the blank metal disc used to strike coins, wasn't quite right. It was slightly off in its alignment or preparation, resulting in a coin that looked mostly normal, until experts got a closer look. What they found was an error related to improper die alignment, possibly combined with a misstrike that affected the depth and clarity of Jefferson's portrait. The fine details didn't line up. The strike pressure was inconsistent. And in some rare examples, the reverse design showed faint weakness, as if the coin had been pulled slightly during the moment of striking. It was subtle, but unmistakable, the kind of error that didn't scream for attention, but rewarded those who looked closer. This wasn't just a random defect. It was a true mint error, the kind that experts classify and catalog. And the fact that it happened in such a recent year made it even more unusual. By 2003, minting technology had improved dramatically. Quality control was tighter. Mistakes like this weren't supposed to happen anymore. That's part of what made this coin so fascinating. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a modern mistake. And that meant collectors took notice. Some errors from earlier decades are expected. But in a time of digital precision and automated inspection, this one stood out. It was a flaw that shouldn't have happened, but did. And what elevated this particular 2003 P nickel from interesting to extraordinary was its condition. One example, found and certified not long after its discovery, showed near-perfect surfaces. The error was present and unmistakable, but so was the shine, the luster, the sharpness of its remaining design. It was as if the coin had escaped into the world for a moment, and then stopped aging entirely. Most coins with errors are heavily circulated. They're found years later, worn down and scratched. But this one? It looked like it had been caught in the act and frozen in time. Every collector knows how rare that is. Its surfaces were nearly flawless. The fields were bright, the edges clean, and the strike still sharp where it counted. Under a loupe, even Jefferson's hair strands and coat lines held their original depth. It wasn't just rare, it was visually striking. Coins like this don't survive easily. They get lost in circulation, damaged in machines, or simply thrown into jars and forgotten. But somehow, this one was spared. Pulled aside. Saved before the world could wear it down. The coin was submitted for grading, and the results confirmed what many hoped. The error was legitimate. The coin was real. And the condition? Practically mint state. Collectors were stunned. Not just because of the mistake, but because of the coin's survival. It wasn't supposed to be this clean. It wasn't supposed to exist in this state at all. And once the word got out, the demand began to rise. Quietly at first. Then quickly. Whispers turned into headlines. A 2003 nickel, just 2 digits away from what you probably have in your change, had suddenly become the centerpiece of serious interest. It was a reminder that not all valuable coins are old, and not all treasures are obvious. One of the things that makes this story so captivating is its modern setting. This isn't a coin from a forgotten mint or a distant era. It's recent. Familiar. And that's what makes it so exciting, because it could have ended up anywhere. You could have received it in change at a grocery store. Dropped it in a soda machine. Or tossed it unknowingly into a tip jar. But this one was caught just in time. Because this coin, this 2003 p nickel with a rare and perfectly preserved mint error, was eventually valued at $39,000. For a coin you could have pulled from your pocket 2 decades ago without ever knowing what you were holding. That's the power of a mistake. That's the beauty of rarity. And that's why collectors never stop looking. Because the next incredible coin could already be in your hands. Now let's explore a coin that might surprise you, a 2015 p Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it looks like your everyday nickel, Thomas Jefferson on the front, Monticello on the back, the familiar P mint mark quietly signaling its Philadelphia origin. It's the kind of coin you probably wouldn't think twice about. You've likely handled dozens of them without ever realizing it. But hidden among the millions of nickels minted that year is a version of the coin that stands apart. A version that collectors keep an eye out for. And the reason isn't always obvious. This is where modern coin collecting gets interesting, because even in the era of digital precision and tight quality control, unexpected treasures still slip through. Most people assume that newer coins can't be valuable. After all, they're still in circulation. They're recent. They're common, right? But not always. In the case of the 2015 p nickel, a few key factors changed everything: condition, scarcity of perfect examples, and in some cases, small but critical minting errors. Let's start with the condition. In numismatics, the state of preservation is everything. Coins that enter circulation immediately begin to wear down, rubbing against other coins, scratching in pockets, getting dropped, handled, and passed along. Before long, even a brand new coin can start to lose its edge, literally. But some coins manage to escape that fate. Maybe they were pulled aside accidentally. Maybe they were part of an early mint roll and never opened. Whatever the reason, a small number of 2015 p nickels have been found in incredibly high grades, practically untouched, with full original luster and razor-sharp detail. These are coins where every line in Jefferson's hair is visible. Where Monticello's windows are crisp. Where the fields of the coin, those flat areas around the design, are clean, smooth, and brilliant. In short, coins that look like they were struck yesterday. But what makes some of these coins even more intriguing is that a few carry subtle minting errors. These aren't the dramatic, obvious mistakes most people picture. They're quiet, almost invisible at first glance, but they're real. A double die here. A tiny die chip there. Slight variations in strike pressure. Even small anomalies in the rim or edge. These are the kinds of details only a trained eye will catch, but once spotted, they can elevate an ordinary coin into something far more interesting. And here's the thing, these errors aren't intentional. They're not part of a special issue or limited run. They happened by accident, during high-speed, high-volume production at the Philadelphia Mint. That's what makes them so exciting. They're not supposed to exist. And yet they do. When one of these coins is found in top condition, with one or more of these rare traits, collectors take notice. Not because it's old, but because it's unusual. Because it tells a story. You see, collecting isn't just about age or metal content. It's about survival. It's about spotting the coins that somehow avoided wear, avoided damage, avoided everything that could have reduced them to just pocket change. And it's about finding those coins with tiny imperfections that make them unique, one of a kind, in a sea of sameness. That's what makes the 2015 P nickel so fascinating. It's not about what the coin was meant to be. It's about what it became. A coin that somehow slipped through with a tiny flaw, and survived in perfect condition. Many collectors who specialize in modern errors and high-grade mint state coins actively search rolls of 2015 nickels, hoping to uncover just one that fits the criteria. And it's not just for fun, it's because they know what a coin like that could be worth to the right person. Its rarity doesn't lie in mintage numbers, but in condition and detail. And sometimes, it's not even the error itself that creates the value, it's the combination. A perfect coin with a hidden imperfection. A flawless surface hiding a subtle flaw. That paradox is what drives so much of the excitement in the modern coin market. It's also what makes every coin hunt feel like a mystery. Because you don't need a centuries-old coin to strike gold. Sometimes all it takes is the right nickel, from the right year, in the right condition. So if you're holding a 2015 P Jefferson nickel, don't toss it aside just yet. Take a closer look. Check the edges, the surfaces, the clarity of Jefferson's eye, the lettering around Monticello. You might just spot something different, something unusual. And if that coin looks sharper than usual, cleaner, brighter, untouched, you might be holding a valuable piece without even knowing it. In the end, this coin is a perfect example of how value can hide in plain sight. It's not flashy. It's not rare in number. But when the right mix of condition and mistake comes together, it becomes something collectors chase. A modern nickel, with modern mystery, and modern value. So the next time a Jefferson nickel crosses your hand, especially one from 2015, don't look away too quickly. Because the coin you overlook could be the one that everyone else is still trying to find. In the last spotlight of today's journey through rare and valuable nickels, we turn our attention to a coin that many would never suspect, the 2016 P 5-cent piece. At first glance, it looks exactly like the ones you've used countless times, a Jefferson nickel from Philadelphia, modern, ordinary, familiar. It doesn't look rare. It doesn't look important. But that's exactly what makes this one so special. Because sometimes, the coins that appear the most average, are the ones hiding something exceptional. The 2016 P nickel is part of a massive production run. Millions upon millions were struck that year. Most were handled roughly, passed around in pockets, used in change, scratched, dented, forgotten. But a very small number, and we mean very small, avoided all of that. One coin in particular caught the attention of collectors not because of what was missing, but because of what was perfectly preserved. This coin was found in stunning condition. Not just nice, not just clean, but pristine. Original luster across both sides. Razor-sharp detail in Jefferson's hair, jacket, and the lines of Monticello's windows. A smooth, untouched surface that looked like it had never even seen circulation. As if it had skipped over the chaos of daily use entirely and landed directly in a protective case. It looked frozen in time. But there was something else. Something subtle. Collectors noticed that in this specific example, there was a slight shift, a minute variation in strike pressure. It gave the coin a slightly raised appearance on part of the design. Not enough to call it damaged. Not enough to call it a minting disaster. But just enough to prove that this was not your average nickel. That tiny shift created an effect on the lettering, soft shadowing on parts of the inscription, and a slight distortion along the edge. Not dramatic, not obvious, but there. Quiet, and real. These are the kinds of errors that don't jump off the coin. They whisper, rather than shout. But to the trained eye, they speak volumes. They signal that what you're looking at isn't common. It's rare. And rarity, paired with condition, is the magic formula in coin collecting. Grading experts examined it carefully and confirmed what collectors suspected. This wasn't just a well-preserved piece. It was a standout. A coin that managed to be both technically fascinating and visually perfect, a combination that doesn't come around often, especially with modern nickels. You see, by 2016, the Mint had already implemented highly automated systems. Precision was the standard. Errors were not supposed to make it through. And that's exactly why this coin turned heads. It defied the odds. And it survived. It's also important to note that finding a 2016 P nickel in flawless condition without any minting flaw is already tough. But to find one with a legitimate error, even a subtle one, in near-perfect shape, that's almost unheard of. Some believe the die used may have been overused or slightly misaligned, causing the pressure variation that left that small but crucial difference in the coin's finish. Others speculate that a transitional die was briefly used during the minting process, a scenario that has happened before in U.S. coinage history. Whatever the cause, the result was something remarkable, a coin that's now considered a key modern find. It quietly entered circulation, went unnoticed by thousands, and nearly vanished into obscurity. And that's what excites collectors. Not just old coins or ancient artifacts, but modern pieces that should have been ordinary, and somehow ended up extraordinary. It's a reminder that value isn't always about age. It can be about survival. It can be about precision. And it can be about the smallest errors that turn something familiar into something unforgettable. Because once this coin's true quality was realized, and its rarity was confirmed, the coin's value was set. And it wasn't small. That seemingly ordinary Jefferson nickel, the one that almost disappeared into the world without a second thought, was ultimately valued at $24,000. It's still out there, and others like it might be hiding in drawers, coin jars, or bank rolls, waiting for someone with a sharp eye to recognize their true potential. So don't assume new coins are worthless, because sometimes, modern mint errors become tomorrow's most valuable finds. And that's the thrill of coin collecting, the unknown, the overlooked, and the hope that the next coin you find might just be the one. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey through 5 incredible nickels. If you enjoyed today's discoveries, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to uncover, and we'll be right here, bringing it to you, one coin at a time. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and keep checking your change.